Magistics. Just the what? The Magistics. What's a Magistic? And then Dark Star says, "Oh, that's Majestics."
B-Team, hate is a strong word, but I think it's apropos when it comes to your thoughts and feelings on these team names.
Yeah, hate works. It's, greed, like greed works.
Hate works for you?
Hate works in this example, and I'm not a hater, but yeah, I've said it here before. I'll say it now. I hate the team names, the LIV team names.
Okay.
So what are we talking about? We're talking about the LIV team names, starting with the four aces and moving on down through the Niblix. That's an exciting one.
That was exciting.
Yeah, it's like, what'd you have for breakfast this morning? Did you have the Niblix? Yeah, I did have the Niblix with a little bit of sugar. It was, interesting. What are some other good ones? Punch isn't so awful.
Well,
but it's good.
I hate to disagree with you, but I still think
you don't hate to disagree with me. You love to disagree with me.
Okay, but I still think some of the names were designed to attract the younger audience. Punch, Ironheads, Crushers, Fireballs.
Close the circle for me. When you say younger, what do you mean? 25, 20?
Yeah, young guys that think they can
what's
either play
a
golf.
Young guy why is he attracted to the team name Punch?
Well, Crushers and Punch, they're aggressive names.
Okie dokie. Good thing you're a medical professional and not a marketing person.
All right.
But we have marketing people in our audience.
Well, I'm not a marketing person.
You can and you're happy to own that. That's fine. Everybody's got to be good at something. You're an excellent physician. Ironheads, my favorite, the Magistics. Just the what? The Magistics. What's a Magistic? And then Dark Star says, "Oh, that's Majestics." I said, but it's spelled wrong. And I knew it was Majestics. Of course, I've heard that name on the broadcast, but it looks like Magistics.
It does.
Fragile. Must be Italian. That's fragile. Gotcha. Still right. A great movie line. Any comment? What movie is that from? Still haven't seen that film, but I know what movie.
It's on.
Yeah, well, we'll see who comes up with it.
My favorite. I told you in research. I believe Niblix. I was looking at some European article that Niblix is a particular site that we don't like to visit. That
certain people would visit in the middle of the night.
Yes,
and potentially get something on their device.
Only in Ireland, I guess.
Only in Ireland.
I don't know. Maybe.
Well,
maybe it's
a little whiskey, late night rendezvous with Niblix.com or whatever it is.
We'll have to ask Faraday about that one.
Faraday would know. He would know. And that would be good. If he didn't know, I'd be disappointed, in fact. Yeah. He'd get a good laugh out of that. So this show is about the names. There's a rumor out there that ESPN is pushing around that Dustin Johnson, team captain of the Four Aces, which does sound like an off-color sort of thing. Four Aces, is going to change the team name, and as well as make a switch. So a trade in the off season. Player to be named later. Player to be named later is, in this case, Peter Uihlein. Is it Peter? I think it's Peter.
Yeah.
And sending Gooch, not down, but sending Gooch to, I forget which team, but Gooch is still a starter, just on another team. Fine. And it's no reporting on what the team name might be. So here's our take on what the team names are. I thought about it long and hard, and there's a lot of ways to go, actually. You could look at soccer, or worldwide football, so to speak. You could look at Formula One. You could look at the American NFL or Major League Baseball. Those are all strong brands and different from each other. I kind of stayed focused on soccer, worldwide soccer, and Formula One. But I think we know from Greg Norman and LIV that the sponsorship element, ownership, the players have a piece of the action. So these teams are supposed to stand on their own as a brand.
Yeah, it's all about being a franchise. It's all about the players being able to run and own a franchise. That was Norman's big thing. He didn't feel he had control over his golf environment. And LIV is in a great position. I think you mentioned Formula One. I'm a huge Formula One fan. But Formula One is one of those situations. It's ripe to sort of be overtaken. It's the only sport, when you think about it, where the players travel. They go from country to country. Every race is in a different country for the most part. But the product, this year Verstappen's won 14 of 20 races. There's only 2 teams that have even won a race. Only one small team on the podium. Mm-hmm. And the LIV events being all over the world, creating a brand, creating multiple franchise. I think they're in the catbird seat, as my dad would say.
As a team sport. You're right, because I mentioned tennis, World Cup skiing as traveling sports that do well, but tennis is an individual. Those are both individual sports. Yeah. So that's true for the most part, individual sports. Yeah. I don't know where I mentioned to you, but if you take the population of the U.S. and put that at 330 million, let's just use 300 million round number, and then you add up all the other Gulf countries, it comes up to about the same number. So if you put Korea, Japan, Australia together with the UK, Ireland, I like to say Scotland though too. So let's say England, Scotland, and Ireland with the continent, with the EU, with the Euro Union, or the Eurozone, I should say. That comes up to about, and South Africa. I don't want to miss that. So, and South Africa. You put that all together, it's at least 300 million. It might be slightly more than that, actually. Discount the Eurozone a little because golf's not big in Germany, France. It's okay. Right. But Spain, that is reasonably strong there because the weather's better. But so those are two pretty competitive. So the team names would speak to that, I think.
So what are you going to do? Are you going to make them the New York Yankees? Are you going to make them corporate sponsors? How do they? Yeah. How do they capitalize on this?
Red Bull, the Red Bull team Mercedes is their car. Is that right?
No.
What's the Red Bull team's car?
They have a Honda engine. It's just Red Bull Racing.
Oh, it is? Okay. Yeah. So Red Bull and then Mercedes, is that how they do it?
Mercedes is Mercedes, okay. Ferrari's, but go.
Gotcha. I have little kids. I have no time to watch Formula One at 2 a.m. or 5 a.m. When does it come on in America?
It comes on at 10 in the morning.
10, yeah, definitely.
It's perfect. No, Sunday mornings.
Chasing little boys around at that time.
Brunch.
Chasing my 2 sons around at that time of the day. Right. So that's an interesting way to do it. But let's cut to the chase. First of all, before we do that, we're going to leave you hanging then, because the names are coming next, and these were thought out names. We're not just throwing stuff against the wall, but you could, because there's not only one way to go here. Where are we? Why are we here? We're going to hold on the names, but
we've been displaced.
This does not look like the studio.
We've been displaced so many times. That's why we can't get content out.
This is not the studio, as I recall. No, this venue was something we chose purposefully. We were set up in the studio, ready to go.
We don't have a studio.
The studio is such as it is, and we decided to come here.
We did.
Yeah. So it's very nice. So the very bright out this way, you can't see that, but this way is water and beautiful, and this way is obviously pool. But yeah, I like it.
This is our producer's home, our future producer's home.
You can't get service here though.
No.
I asked for a beer like 20 minutes ago, and I've got my water.
It is
no. So if the service picks up, then I would say we'd come back.
It's way past 5 o'clock in London, so yeah.
Oh, absolutely. So here we are, and we may shoot again here. So we'd love to hear, who thinks what about this particular set. But I like it. There is some wind noise. Apologies. We'll try to do some magic, maybe in editing, to keep that lower. But that's going to be a factor. All right. So the team.
You did cue the wind very nicely.
I did. I liked, yes.
It's perfect.
The team names. So I like regions. I like using the natural fit for LIV because they have already a team in Australia, which is very natural. They have a South African team. They have the makings of a Spanish team. It's not fully Spanish, I don't think, but from Spain, meaning
Spanish in Mexico.
Yeah. It's not Team España perfectly, but it's headed in that direction, and it can be over time. I mean, they can get another Spanish player. So that is all just lines up, and a Euro team. for the continental guys, and then England could do one, Scotland might be able to pull one off, or you could do a UK type team. But so to cover all those bases, I would say LIV, and this is a little bit like car branding or National Football League branding, where you have the league, the NFL, Cleveland Browns. But people just say Cleveland Browns. But it's LIV Australia, LIV South Africa, LIV Japan, LIV Asia, if you want to go that route, or go LIV Korea. But if you need a Korea, Japan, and Asian mix, because you have players from Thailand perhaps, and I think there's one or two from Thailand right now, but that could change. But you could have LIV Japan, which I think is the Matsuyama show, which I'm still looking at that. I don't think that's over.
We got a year. Yeah.
You could go LIV Asia United, LIV Europe United. So where there is a continent, Asia, South America is another one that's a natural, because they only have the one Chilean, right?
But and I think the one thing I don't want you, maybe people think you're implying too much, is the fact that Sergio might be captain of Team Spain, but I don't think you don't have to have all Spanish people. Like you said, you don't have to be from New York to play for the New York Yankees.
How many Frenchmen play for League One?
Yeah.
So Paris Saint-Germain has everybody except. No, it's not literally true. Don't get excited. But there's a lot of
and
players.
Quickly to get to the United States, you have Bubba from Florida, DJ from the Carolinas. So we're going to do regions there, I thought.
We're going to do in America, because I know the fans are already fast forwarding because they're smart. Because this is a thinking man show. They have brains, they work. For America, it's a little bit trickier, you might say. But I think we go with states that are the big golf meccas in America, and they're as big as countries. They have 15, 20 million people. So it's LIV Florida, LIV Texas, LIV California, LIV Georgia. You could do LIV Carolina, not North or South, but LIV Carolina if you want to throw a bone to DJ. But I think he lives in Florida most of the time.
I think,
is that fair? We could look it up. We didn't. And LIV Ohio. I kind of want to get Ohio in there, just because there's so much good golf there. But you could go in. You could do LIV New York. But that's my thinking. So it's LIV, then the region or country, then you have the team.
Now, I lean a little more towards a little bit of sponsorship. So, to throw something out there.
Talk about the gambling thing.
Well, that's what I was going to say. So, sponsorship. So, obviously, Phil Mickelson, wherever let's say he's the California team, whatever. I mean, what an unbelievable fit to tie in for example, the MGM app, the LIV California, sponsored by MGM. What a perfect rivalry, because, he's friends with Tom Brady. What an unbelievable rivalry versus Caesars and the Mannings. Those type of, LIV has endless possibilities when it comes to that type of picture. I look at Bubba Watson. Bubba's a huge Oakley guy. I believe he's got, one of the very expensive watch companies. But, you could be if you want to give it a name, the only thing I'm worried about is how do you have a logo? You can't put Florida up there as a logo. So, is Bubba's team going to be like, I don't know, the Oakley Outlander, something silly, but you got to come up. I still think we need to come up with some type of logo that is going to resonate with the public. They're not going to want to buy a hat that's yellow and says Florida on it.
You make a good point. I will take your point and counterpoint and say logos are most critical for brands that have a distance viewing aspect to them. So the easiest example would be Starbucks or McDonald's. You need to see that from far away where you can't read it. You just know that that's a McDonald's. That's an easy one, right? The Golden Arches are world famous.
Sure.
Starbucks, world famous. And there are a number of those. On the sports thing, my marketing instincts say it's the Pittsburgh Steelers. Do I care that it's 3 diamonds in the middle of a white circle field of color? No, I don't care. It's the Steelers. It's Pittsburgh. That's what it's the name itself, not the colors. Now the colors are important for uniform.
But the hat has the 3 diamonds.
They do,
on it.
but you don't think of it that way when you think of the team.
Right, I get it.
It's important. The color of your car is important, but you don't think of the color. I don't have a red McLaren. It's a black McLaren. It's a McLaren. I don't have a McLaren, but somebody does. And you look like a McLaren guy.
Yeah, I know. That's why I brought up Norris earlier.
So branding is mostly about sound. That's where I'm headed with this. So it's what sound resonates with your brain when you say it to yourself, because you're not typically saying it out loud. You're thinking about your team. So Team Australia would say Team Australia, LIV Australia, not Team Australia, LIV Australia, and then the colors and all that would be done extremely well. Blah blah blah. Obviously, bring in a great creative team to do that. I think it works great. I'm very pleased with those names. The other aspect to it that is compelling, forget doing LIV Australia, LIV Florida. You're saying MGM or the branding of it. That's like the Red Bull.
Yeah, I mean,
team.
I see Banco
in Formula One.
Right, Banco Santander sponsoring the España team.
Right, so
things like that.
Is it fair for me to say I was Red Bull Formula One or Formula One Red Bull?
Right.
I don't know how you would say it. If you had to put those two things in a sentence, which would come first? Formula One Red Bull or Red Bull Formula One?
Neither. It's just the Red Bull Formula One team.
There you go. It comes second.
Yeah.
So it would be MGM LIV or LIV MGM. I think those are two corporate brands that compete with each other. So that's the way I didn't go that direction.
Okay. So maybe they're sponsors, and LIV is going to get sponsors.
But we're back to racing, right? So you have all kinds of big stickers on your car.
Yeah, right. And I think therein lies where the captains are going to have more control. And this is where Norman wanted to delegate the control to the Bubba Watsons, the Dustin Johnsons, the Phil Mickelsons, because they're going to relate to the younger golfer that's on their team a lot better than Greg is at this standpoint. I think it's, from some of the research, it's going to be like a 75-25 split. So they're going to get franchise money of 25% on top of their salary and earnings. Similar to, guess what? All the other major sports where you get revenue sharing from the television. What a novel concept, PGA. I didn't say that, did I?
Yeah,
no, I did.
The LIV model just has always been interesting to us. This is not a show about LIV golf. It's not a show about golf, particularly. We've said that from the get-go, but it is a show about thinking and logic.
It's just turned into that,
well,
unfortunately.
because you apply thinking and logic to this business battle, because that's what it is. It's a battle of two businesses, and business A and business B are going at it. Right. And business A is the PGA Tour, and they have been A, screwing up, B, failing, doing stupid stuff. They had a much stronger hand to play, and somebody in our audience, and we should mention those names. We're going to do an audience comment show, by the way, coming up. Pointed out, a great analogy, which was you don't fold after the first cards, and that's what the PGA did. They folded right away when they should have stuck to their guns. So this is a business case study for us, and these names are a part of that.
All right. In their case, they were so wrong. They had no choice, because for years, as Cameron Smith said, the PGA needs to be changed, needs to be shaken up. By the way, I thought we were turning into a golf show because we couldn't get any time on YouTube on any of our other content.
Remains to be seen. But since we're well paid by LIV Golf, since everybody thinks that, wouldn't that be nice?
It would be. I'd quit my real job.
Is this the LIV Golf Chateau? Is that what we're in?
Yes,
maybe
the LIV Golf
We could
Chateau.
say that. There might be wild speculation out there. I think all that is true. Where we got off in this little tangent is LIV's business model interesting and good? I think it is, and I only look at it as a business guy. I love the gambling aspect of it, as you know. I think LIV will build their streaming broadcast around gamblers worldwide, which fits into my name. So Team Asia United, that might interest people in Macau. Right?
Right.
I mean, it might. You could go and say, we have a Team China. Fine. Or China might back Team Asia United.
Right.
Fine. LIV Asia United, rather. Fine.
But my point to the corporate friends is we are a global economy now, and they are truly the one sport with teams that's going to travel everywhere. You mentioned Taylor Gooch. I did want to get this in. I really, one of the things that I think is potentially coming, because I really believe if your name's not Rory, Tiger, Justin, or Jordan, you're going to really start thinking hard about LIV, because those are the only guys that now are getting thrown huge money by the PGA Tour. And I could see expanding to 60 players. I could see like the college in the United States where you have 5 players, 4 scores counting, something along those lines. Yeah, that'd be a great format. You'd still only have 20 teams. You can get 20 teams on in a shotgun. I have some other things I'd love to talk about in regard to their format, which I think would be fabulous.
If Greg were sitting right over here, which would be lovely, it'd be interesting to know how he thinks about the 54, the LIV name as it's tied into that number, because there's more room on this field
There is.
for more players. And what are they going to do? Are they going to have teams that just sit for a tournament? Maybe.
Right.
You know, your team didn't make it. They kind of have. Maybe they're playing that to the OWGR look.
Yeah.
You get cut before the tournament starts.
Well,
you know, you may not play in every event.
the NFL, National Football League, actually was the American and the National. They merged, but now you just call it the NFL.
Sure.
So
Yeah,
LIV
LIV
Golf
could go in a
started
lot.
with-
Or LIV itself could be the premier league, and Asian Tour or LIV minor league might be something
yeah,
else.
they do
Who
have
knows
some
how
minor
they-
league things they're going
It
with.
could evolve that way, but I like those names a lot. I like it for the fans in those countries. It's totally different than the PGA Tour, which is great. You don't want to be exactly like your competitor, and you want to be different in a cool way. So to me, it's a natural fit that fans in Australia or South Africa or wherever are going to gravitate towards. Hey, LIV South Africa. We finally are on the map here. You know, we have a team in a major brand that gets a lot of media attention, a lot of money. And if you're a kid in South Africa or a kid in Australia and you're 10 and you're thinking about golf professionally, hey man,
By the way,
LIV Australia.
Gary Player is one of the big 3, right?
Yeah,
Big 3, Gary Player from South Africa.
absolutely.
You got 2 guys that grew up, an hour apart from each other in the United States, and then you got Gary Player from South Africa. So, great representation.
I think
there.
that the names ought to tie into the global brand. And I can't be the only guy thinking this. I'm sure I'm not. Maybe we're the only guys saying it as forcefully. I hope we are. I hope we're first, because it's good to be first. It's easier than being smarter, right?
If you're first, it's not panic.
Exactly. It's a hell of a lot easier to be first.
Yes.
So they're kicking this around at LIV for sure, and it just ties in so nicely. We have all these teams. And then we have a purpose to turn out the. If I were the chief recruiter for LIV, looking for players, which would be fun. Now I have something to look for. I need another Asian kid to fill my Team Asia United or LIV Asia United.
Right. And I was going to say, more importantly, the more intelligent athlete of today, Bryson DeChambeau, they're really entrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. And I think Bryson really thinks, he took Audubon Lahiri. He's from India. If Bryson's truly going to franchise these things, remember, Bryson was not an original captain.
Excellent point.
If Bryson's going to franchise this, I want a guy from India. I want somebody from around the world. I want the Bryson DeChambeau team to be global.
Yeah, no. Can I put a dot on that for you?
Please.
And then I'm going to have the beer, because you just got a beer for that. A good one.
We need to put that earlier in the show.
If he's going to sell something that he can sell that he owns, whatever, Bryson, jewelry, well, whatever it is. Yeah, obviously having a market in India would be a good thing. Yeah. Because there's a billion Indians, right? And you'd want you'd want all that, sure, of course.
The Asian market is the true growing market in the Southeast Asia.
It's the only growing
market, right?
Really. The Chinese middle class was the thing 10, 15 years ago, and still is a thing, because there's about 300 million middle class Chinese out of the 1.2, and India is smaller than that, I believe. I don't have the numbers, but let's say there's 100 million in the Indian middle class, with 900 million that are not so well off. But still,
but if Greg wants to
good
be,
market.
Greg wants to be an
same goes for
influencer.
Japan.
Right. No,
That's why this is such a natural for
Hideki.
Yeah. Hideki, come on.
He's coming.
Get with the program.
He will.
Get with the program.
This is where, if you're Greg Norman, you are an entrepreneur. You want these other young superstars to be like you, to do something on your own. And he's given them this opportunity, handing it to him on a silver platter.
Absolutely. Well, what do you think? I'm sure this is dinner conversation at the tournament, right? Greg is, I have to believe Greg is having dinner with some of the players
Sure.
each time, right? Because
Right.
you move around, you talk to different groups. Hey, Mr. Norman would love to, or Greg would love to have dinner with team 4 aces tonight. The 4 aces show up. It's probably a blast, and that's also a reason to be on LIV versus the PGA Tour. Who wants to have dinner with Jay Monahan? Just doesn't look that interesting.
No.
Maybe it is. I say that. Maybe it's.
I'm sure
maybe
Jay'd
it's
be
not so bad.
fun to have a beer with. He
Maybe.
could get to where he
I don't know
has
about sure.
All right.
Maybe. I'm willing to say maybe. If he called, we'd certainly be there.
Yeah.
Hopefully he's got a sense of humor and he can take a jab, and he can stick it to us too. That's totally fine.
Yeah. It'd be a lot easier for him to stick it to us.
But Greg, what did Greg Norman? I don't know about that. I'm not going to agree with that necessarily.
Okay.
What did Greg Norman, besides being very successful at golf, with notable failures, which he probably still hurts about.
Sure.
But what did he build after that? A global business, small empire.
Yeah.
Big for sports.
Starting from scratch. I mean, Tiger is part of Nike, and the other guys are all Jordan's part of Under Armour. I think Arnold was obviously an exception because of the time period. But Greg starting from scratch at that time was something.
I'm going to go ahead and assume, and we should look it up, audience comment, because you guys might already know this. I'm going to assume, because I haven't looked it up, that Arnold and Jack, who had business empires outside of golf, because of golf, of course, but outside of golf in clothing and all that other stuff. Golf course design, that doesn't count. That's too much of a fit. I'm saying something different. And Palmer had, the lemonade and iced tea thing. I mean, he was all over the place and made a ton of money. But Nicholas, same. I'm going to say that the IMG guy had a lot to do with that. A whole lot. His name escapes me. He's passed away.
Well, that's the point. McCormick started
Mark McCormick.
He started the industry.
Correct.
So that's
it's
what I'm saying.
Right? Mark McCormick. Is that right?
He started the
Is
industry.
he dead?
Yes.
I think he is.
Yeah.
But I don't think Norman. I don't remember seeing or hearing that Greg Norman was an IMG guy. Maybe he was. Maybe he was, because he idolized Nicholas, idolized. Maybe that's too strong a word, but respected Jack quite a bit. And idolized is fair because Jack is the greatest winner of all time. So my point there was that Greg built his empire himself.
He did.
I don't think with a lot of. I'm sure he had help. Of course,
I think that was the point. And now he is, like I said, he's teeing up the Bryson DeChambeaus and the Phil Mickelsons, and then on a silver platter to do. Here's what you do. Here's the it's like a boilerplate, right?
Yeah.
So anyway,
I was looking at our clock. I think and these, if the names were cool, if they had brand names as good as, say, some of the best in the world brand names, Porsche comes to mind, BMW, just pick on some cars, but the Coca-Cola, there's some big, great brands out there. If these teams turned into that in sport, where LIV Australia was a real thing, I mean, that's the PGA Tour is going to be very sad that they didn't think of it.
Well, and I think like I said, I truly believe in the expansion of the teams.
I do.
I also would love, I'm going to throw this out there, maybe a quick aside. I would actually, in a couple of the events, I would love to see more of like what they did in Miami, where they had sort of the last day was fabulous, just cutting it down to those few players. But even having an event where you go Thursday, Friday, Saturday, having an individual winner, because there's all these complaints about, an individual and a team, you can't. But then take the top 4 teams and play them on Sunday. I love that format of 2 individuals and 1 alternate shot. And, hey, those guys would have to play 36 on that day to get an eventual team champion. But if you did that a couple times a year now,
Or when the next event's 3-4 weeks away.
Yeah.
Big deal, 36 on one day.
And it's only going to be a small portion of the players.
You've had a lot of good ideas, and I think there's a lot of room inside the actual format to make improvements, changes, do it differently. The team aspect is a very good one from a just plain business point of view, which means it gets audience, it gets ratings. It's interesting to the players. It changes the dynamic. Everybody likes playing for it. In golf, particularly, you hate to let your partner down. Right. It's just a thing. That's true in every team sport, but it's really pointed in golf, baseball, because it's, you know, you don't want to get up and strike out when they need you.
Never want
right?
to make the last out in a
You
loss.
do not want. It's you know, it'd be
Painful.
dropping a touchdown for the game. That would be right there, but
Yeah.
it's just striking out because it's just you up there. You know, that's rough. But golf's like that, and yeah, yes, I think that's all true. And here's I wanted to throw. You want to
Go ahead.
We
Well,
can
my-
start to wrap up.
My last idea about the whole format, the last round, whatever that is, Saturday, Sunday, but the typical format, Sunday, I would love to see split tees where instead of like the PGA does, where the guys in last place go off the back nine, I would like to see the leaders go off of 1 and the penultimate group go off of 10 at the same time. Because they could do that. They have the room for that. So you would literally have, because how many times does a guy further back than 12th place win a tournament? Very rare. You would literally have the last 4 groups literally on the 9th and 18th hole at the same time. One group would be on the green. The last group would be teeing off. Same with 9. You know,
Well,
that's
you could-
exciting.
and what came to my mind when you told me that, I thought, hey, that was a great idea. But was immediately jumped in there was you pick the venue, right? I mean, there are golf courses where 9 and 18 are next to each other.
Yeah.
The greens.
Oh, yeah.
So you have 2 green complexes.
Yeah.
And you're 50 yards
It'd be a
away or
massive
something.
stadium, yeah.
It'd be amazing. Like Augusta is that way.
Yeah. Actually, most of your old traditional courses are that way. The club, you play 9 and 18 up to the clubhouse.
I think there's plenty of courses
Yeah.
where that would fit beautifully, and you could just pick them for that particular. So the bonus information before we wrap up today was the team element. I think is great. Okay, these names I think they will change them, and I hopefully go with what we're suggesting because I think that's really works, and for the long haul. I mean, 50 years, 100 years, you could have a long thing here. Curveball, ready?
Yep.
So LIV with the Saudi-backed LIV Golf, because that's really, according to Golf Channel and others, that's golf
Yeah.
writers. You
All
can't.
right.
It's all the same thing, right? You have to say it that way. So it'd be interesting to kick around the conference table that LIV Golf heavily invests in or outright buys the LPGA. And after that purchase, because it'd be cheap. I mean, there's no real audience there, not meaningful. But I think the LPGA has potential, and it really has no audience. It does not do well. They don't have a lot of tournaments. They don't have a lot of it. They don't have. It's not a good thing at the moment.
Yeah.
From a
And I don't know
revenue
if
point of
you
view.
have intimated on previous shows, we'd have to go back that, yes, you truly feel the LPGA needs to have some type of team competition mixed with the men. I think that's going to be your point, right?
Well, I was going to make that point. Yeah,
I know, but I stole it because it's late.
You did. So they buy it, yes, and then not only it's not the team thing doesn't become an element of it like LIV has an individual play as well. So LIV buys the LPGA and turns it into a 100% team tour. Team match tour is the name I like. And you can have some individual elements to it, but it's a team tour. And I like 2-person teams, two women on each team, 2 girls, however you want to say it. Because I can't say a 2-man team. A 2-woman team, I like that. Now you could have other events maybe where it's 4 balls, but instead of just 2. But I really like that with a lot of trades, a lot of intrigue, a lot of, and there's some elements of that already on the LPGA. They do have a couple of tournaments like that, but make it a 100% team thing, global, because they're already being dominated by Korea pretty much, right?
Yeah.
But same kind of thing. It'd be not LIV. I don't know what the name would be, but
Yeah.
but they would own it, and that would be, I think, really cool.
Yeah.
Also good for Saudi Arabia. I don't know that they can get away with that, but
Well, I comment if I'm wrong, but wasn't Saudi Arabia backing the LPGA tour?
yeah, I don't know that story, but yes, it's out there.
And versus
They've invested.
China was spending a lot of money more on the PGA tour, and that's where the Saudis kind of got the initial idea.
I never looked it up, but yeah, I've seen that in obliquely that there's Saudi money in the LPGA as a sponsor or something.
Yeah.
Yes.
But to come full circle, I mean, what a great LIV actually having an off season where you're going to have trades, you're going to have teams, changing, reforming. It's a huge keep the rumor mill going.
Mm-hmm.
Where are you going to have tournaments? What part of the world are you going to next? The rumors on LIV are more exciting than these wraparound. Thank God they're getting rid of the wraparound season. It's painful to even attempt to watch.
I think they took your advice, as they should have.
That somebody has.
It's not just medical advice you can dispense. It's others. I think that would apply to this LPGA example. I think the intrigue around why so-and-so dropped so-and-so and why they're changing, I think it could really work. I really do. It's not like all women's sports are, don't have audiences. Some of them really do. And and will it ever be as big as men's golf? No, because of the way the sport plays. But it could be really interesting, and I think you have to get men to watch.
Yeah,
you have to.
Well, here's what I'm saying.
And they might watch a team event.
They might watch a team event. There might. Here's what I'm saying. With all the streaming and things that are changing and evolving in mass media, there are so many all-women channels. Maybe you need an all-women sports channel. I don't know. There's a silly thought. I mean,
there's a lot of business opportunity. I could see Oprah, like an Oprah as one of the spokespeople for LPGA.
I have never seen anybody talk about something along those lines. And I don't know. It came to me. I hope it just.
I think
I don't
there's
know why.
there's a lot of potential.
Maybe it's the sun.
In my next life, I would love to be CEO of the LPGA. Right after I fix Amtrak. Once I fix Amtrak, then I'm going to move over to fix the LPGA. I think it has potential. I really do. But it needs to be completely redone. And they can play the majors, for example, or maybe one or two true majors. You got to keep the U.S. Women's Open.
I agree.
That's individual play, and that's history. There's a lot of good history there, and everything else though is, team.
Yeah.
Team, I like that a lot.
Sadly, they're regular events. And I don't know. Is there, as long as we're on the subject, is there a fix for the senior tour? I don't know.
I don't think so.
Okay, I didn't think so either.
And that's really the retirement plan. For guys who didn't make a ton of money in the regular tour.
Those guys that are still playing, unfortunately, are playing, and I think that is literally, all right, we're going to throw you this retirement plan, because they don't even bring a third of the staff to those events. It's so sad. So
right, they don't have the tech's not out there. They don't have the cameras. They don't have anything. It's I mean, hats off to Bernhard Langer, who really tore it up out there. Because he loves to play.
Yep.
It wasn't about the money for Bernhard either. He loves the game. He loves the camaraderie. He loves to play. And he's a real family guy, so he must travel with his family a lot. And I think a lot of those senior guys do that, actually. But I can't. I don't know how to fix that one.
No. I don't know either.
It could just do what it does.
Nothing's coming to me.
No.
I think the cloud. Is there a cloud? We just got a cloud.
I tell you what, it might be the only interesting thing that pops right into my mind for those guys. Not all of them, though. Some of them is being captain of a younger guy team.
Yeah.
I could see, Lee Trevino. I would love to see Lee Trevino captaining a team. Gary Player. I'd love to see that.
I'd love to see Lee Trevino on a broadcast instead of anybody else that's on a broadcast.
They tried him on a broadcast.
Did they?
I think so.
He didn't make it, huh?
Something in my brain. It was long ago.
Okay.
But I would, I mean, it'd be. How can you get a Lee Trevino out on to LIV as a captain? Can you do that somehow?
I think you can.
He could just be a captain. Maybe of LIV Mexico.
Yeah.
Make Lee Trevino the captain. He's not a playing captain. He's a captain. And then he can help recruit some more players from Mexico.
I'll tell you what you could have. You could have a LIV team Super Bowl type event where it's only a team event and you bring in senior players.
Other teams.
You bring in Ernie as captain of, say, South African.
Where's he get his players?
Well, they're on the team. That's the problem. I don't think it's going to work. But
when you said Super Bowl, you mean teams that are not on the regular LIV tour? Is that what you mean?
No. You'd still have.
You bring in different captains.
Yeah, instead of having any individual, it's sort of like maybe they have a mid-season Super Bowl where it's just a team event, to bring in other
Different
captains.
than the finals. Different than the team finals.
I don't know. I'm just, it'd be more, like I said, it's all an exhibition except for the major. So
Yeah.
you have you have a team, a pure team Ryder Cup exhibition. Let's say you bring in,
Yeah. Well, there's
like
a
you said,
lot- there's a
if
lot
we
of
go
room
with
there.
these regional events, you have the United States versus the rest of the world. You have maybe a captain on each side. Pick them.
I think the teams are interesting, and the more that LIV succeeds with gamblers, go back to my gambling
I
thing,
know,
because
you're
that's a
big
big
in
part
gam-
of the business model. Well, they don't need, if the gambling works the way I think it will, meaning technically and successfully, the amount of money available there globally, if that works, you don't need advertisers. Not really. I mean, the team sponsors would be delightful. That's and it's always good to have money. I'm not saying they'll leave it on the table, but it's not critical. It's not the biggest. Your business model doesn't revolve around advertising. So as I sit and think about the business model 5 years from now, I don't need advertisers if I have gambling, and I would really rather not to need advertising.
But I don't want it to be like the OTB where you're walking up to the counter before the shotgun starts.
I'm placing my bet right now.
Oh yeah.
Here I go.
All you guys with your phones.
So and but I prefer to sit in the sports book watching, 14 screens and every shot, as that will be cool, and then I can rebet every hole, right? And I have LIV as a shotgun lends itself to that beautifully. So I got 18 matches going all at the same time with all those different players, and the number of bets. If you do the math, it's really cool.
Yeah, there's a lot.
The math is in one of our comments. Max, the producer, replied to and put all the math in there. But it was cool, and I love the way it works. But there was a point there I was going to make, and then we can wrap. What was it? It wasn't about gambling. It was revenue. Knocked me off topic. I forget what it was.
Sorry.
But the guest captain thing. I wanted to circle back with that. Put it on it because I'm a big Lee Trevino fan. I'm a big Gary Player fan. And a bunch of Nicholas. I mean, but on an individual level, I think Lee Trevino brings a lot to the table. I like the way he thinks. I like the way he makes his points. I like his career. I like everything about the guy, really. And Gary, much the same way for different reasons. But those two guys, I would pay money to see them as a captain on LIV for a whole season.
Yeah.
And see how they do, because Gary Player has an intensity. He's not going to be drinking lemonade and captaining from the back.
He has an intensity at everything he does.
He's going to be out there
now,
bringing the team along on every hole.
Can I just hold the LIV mic over Gary the whole time? And
if Gary would
that
do
be
it,
fun.
I would love to see that. I really would. Trevino's another guy, but I'm sure there's other guys that would make really interesting non-playing captains on LIV. That would be really, really cool. And it applies to, obviously, LIV South Africa team, natural place for Gary to show up. LIV Mexico, natural. Or LIV South America United. Lee could lead that team because we already have, just two guys? We just have Answer and Shakara. Anybody else from Central or South America?
I think we do, but
so.
I don't know.
But again, if we were the recruiters, we'd be picking through the colleges to find these kids, to fill out the team, to get our sponsors from Brazil or from Chile or from Mexico, right?
Well, that's going to be a show upcoming soon. You look at what Chikara, he had, and I forgot, he had a good friend at Oklahoma State, and the name escapes me. I'm sure our audience is going to know who I'm talking about. Tried to go through that meat grinder to get on the PGA Tour and never made it. And then Jakarta's like, well, what am I got Sergio as a mentor. I'm going right to the show.
Obviously a great move. Made a great move.
Yeah.
All right, well, tell us about the names. Tell us what I'm really interested in what the audience comes up with, because there's usually some really good ideas.
Yeah, great comments out there.
Great, really great comments. Not all the comments are great. But we let them in there. That's okay. We can handle it. We got big shoulders. It's all right. But I really will be interested in seeing, some alternate theories of how to do these names. And then we'll see what LIV comes up with.
They need logos. I'm sticking to they need logos.
The logos are, they'll get that right. I'm not worried.
I got a hat collection.
I'm not worried.
75 million.
Oh, well. All right. Yeah, okay. All right, B Team is out.
Dark Star's out.
That's all for this video. For Dr. Darkstar and me, thanks for watching. This is a show about finding logical conclusions, and we appreciate you coming along with us. We'll be adding episodes as fast as we can. there's certainly no shortage of things going on in this world.